Hello students, welcome to Short Sir classes. So this question is from ISI 2022 paper of BSTAT BMATH, code is UGA. So the question number 27 is saying that two ships are approaching a port along straight routes at constant velocities. Initially, the two ships and the port formed an equilateral triangle. After the second ship traveled 80 km, the triangle became right angled. Now we have to find when the first ship reaches the port, the second ship was still 120 km from the port. Now we have to find the initial distance between of the ships from the port. So that is, we have it formed an equilateral triangle. You can see the two ships that formed is an equilateral triangle. So if we consider this difference between these two, so this is the port over here. So if I consider these two ships, S1 and S2, so we have the distance, it is given by D. So let the distance be D. Okay, so it is saying that initially the two ships and the port formed an equilateral triangle, so it is D. So this side is also D and this side is also D. Okay. Now when the first ship reaches this, so after the second ship traveled 80 km, so this ship is traveling, suppose this at this point, so this is the 80 km point that is shown, and after that it is forming this right angle triangle. The triangle become right angle, so we will have this D minus 80, right? So if this is D minus 80, okay, and it is given, the angle is given as 60 degree, so this angle is given as 60 degree, and this is the right angle triangle. So we can find the side of this, length of this side of the base. So it should be D minus 80 cos of 60, which is nothing but D minus 80 by 2. So that will be the, so this position is D minus 80 by 2. So this is the distance over here. So what will be the, in the S1 in case the remaining distance, so it is this distance, so it is nothing but D, equilateral triangle we know, so D minus of D minus 80 by 2, which is simply D plus 80 by 2. So this side is D plus 80 by 2, right? Now if we consider that the ship 1, for the first instance the speed is v1 at time t1 till it reaches this position D is covered, the position D plus 80 by 2, and we have the ship 2, the speed is given as v2. So we have this from here, the v1 t1, so we can write v1 t1 as v1 by multiplied by t1, it is simply D plus 80 by 2, and v2 at the time t1 is traversing 80 km, right? So from, so this we have find, and this one. So now if the ship 2, so this is S2, if the distance covered by S2 in time t2, so it is from this position t2, so it is written that when the first ship reaches the port, the second ship was still 120 km from the port. So we have D minus 80, the first ship reaches the port, so you have D minus 80 minus of 120, so it is D minus 200, right? And for this at the time t2, and we will have this v1 t2 will be D minus 80 by 2, and v2 t2 is D minus 200. So we have to omit this V2, T2, V1, T1, right? So if we write it in this manner, so if we write in a, so we have V1, T1 equal to D plus 80 by 2, V2, T1 only 80, V1, T2, so this is T2, this is T2, so V1, T2 we have D minus 80 by 2 and V2, T2 D minus 200. So this V1, T1 and V2, T2, and if we multiply this V1, T2 and V2, T1, so we will just omit all the V1 and the T1 and V2 and the T2 terms, and we will left with D plus 80 by 2 multiplied by D minus 200 equal to, it is 80 D minus 80 by 2. So if we, this will be cancel out, this 2 will cancel out, and we will left with, so it will be simply D square minus 120D minus, it will be 80 into 200, so what, 16,000, so it will be 80D minus 6400. So from here if we simplify, we will have this D square minus 200D minus of 9600, which is equal to 0. So if we solve D out of this, so we will have the value D is either minus 40 or D is equal to 240, right? So minus is not applicable, the distance cannot be negative, so we will have this 240 kilometer. So the final answer to this question is 240 kilometer, the initial distance of the ship from the port. So the correct option is option A, 240 kilometers.